Today is indeed a very special day for us here at EIILM Kolkata. Well, for starters, it's not too often that I get to wish good morning, good afternoon, and good evening all at the same time. But I guess that's what happens when we have multiple time zones in one platform. Today, we are honored to have with us some of the most distinguished speakers from all across the globe. Before we are introduced to them, let me tell you first that we have more than 1,000 registered attendees for this webinar, and more than 5,000 people are watching us live on Facebook on our Facebook page, AIILM Kolkata 69. The COVID-19 pandemic has proven to be the greatest challenge that man has encountered since the Second World War. It has spread rapidly across the world, posing enormous challenge not just to health, but also to the economy and the society at large. At today's webinar, our panelists will discuss how the global economy needs to recalibrate itself to suit the changing times. The topic of today's web seminar is Global Economy Post-Corona Opportunities and Prospects. I now request the Chairman and Director of EIILM Kolkata, Professor Dr. R.P. Banerjee, to deliver the introductory address. Sir, you need to unmute yourself.
Namaskar to everybody. Today we are at a time which is 9:30 a.m. at Tennessee, USA, where Professor Bruce Kevin is sitting. 3:30 p.m. in Frankfurt, where Professor Peter Muller is sitting, and 7 p.m. in India, where we all are here, including most of our viewers and attendees. So as Professor Diaz mentioned, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. Today's seminar is on a very, very important subject, is the global economy post-corona, the opportunities and prospects. Now, when I'm saying post-corona, then I'm assuming that, corona is likely to be over full scale. For the objective of this title is to bring before us certain ideas when even with the corona, if we have to survive, then we have to assume that it is the post-corona period. So looking at it from that perspective, we are talking it as post-corona. May not be in 100% post-corona, but it is after the basic impact of corona. So what are the prospects and opportunities the global economy may have? We have, as Professor Diaz mentioned, very, very strong personalities with us. Professor Bruce K. Wayne, a very good friend of mine. He's a very senior professor at University of Tennessee, USA. He has been on the board of the ICPA, and he was with IAER, he was with the American Accounting Association, he was with many global bodies of finance and accounting, and he's a profound scholar and a professor in the area of finance and accounting. And he's a very renowned person in his own field of studies and in his field of thoughts and practices. So I welcome, on behalf of everybody, Professor Bruce Kevin, I welcome you to this forum, and I wish that your deliberations will be very, very thought-provoking and helpful. Welcome, Bruce.
Dr. Banerjee, thank you so much for the introduction, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for joining today. I want to start off with a little perspective at a micro level, and then I'll get into the macro level here shortly. It was very interesting to me getting into this COVID-19 situation. We went from a 30,000 student face-to-face university at University of Tennessee to a completely online university in 2 weeks. That was light speed in the world of academics to make that happen. And one of the things that really surprised me about this was our upper administration at the time, because it was, everybody was in a little turmoil here, we decided that we were going to call all 30,000 of our students personally as a faculty and as staff to see how the students were doing in this time. And the reason I'm bringing this up is it was very interesting. We always say about talking to our customers, right? It was really amazing the things we found. First, I was really surprised at the number of students that had parents that were being fired and laid off, and they were deciding not to come back to school in the fall. And so we as a university, we're lucky here to have some major donors who gave us some money to make sure that we could support the students so that they could continue their academic career at the University of Tennessee. So, and the second thing that was surprising to me was, we always talk about the mental health capabilities that we have in our institutions, but I never realized to the extent that this coronavirus was creating mental health issues. People felt isolated, confined, and it was causing issues. So again, we really had to turn around and move resources around to enhance our mental health capabilities at the University of Tennessee to help our students, right? And one of the last things that really surprised me about this was, we have a lot of rural students here in the United States. So when we went completely online, we knew we had to provide students, for example, with laptops. That was expected. But what wasn't expected was what we found out in the bigger cities around us. Students didn't have the bandwidth to actually take the online classes that we were offering. So we worked with Verizon and Comcast here in the United States, and we paid for the extended bandwidth of the students so they could actually take these classes online. So in real time, you're seeing changes about what's going on at a university, and we're no different. Last week we found out that we have a 600-seat auditorium at the University of Tennessee that now can hold only 51 students. We have 17 rooms on campus that can hold only 50 students now. And I'm sure we're not alone with everybody out there, but if you think about that, 95% of our classes taught on campus had greater than 50 students. So, from an education standpoint, it's creating a whole new world for us, right? We made it a priority first that our incoming undergraduate students would get benefits of more face-to-face students, and our first-year graduate students would also get, more face-to-face classes, but we can't offer face-to-face classes for everybody, right? So we're going to have juniors in undergraduate program that are still completely online. And, it's not an ideal situation. We were talking about that earlier. I think from a student's perspective, the socialization, the maturation process of being at a university, it's making it more challenging, right? So hopefully this COVID-19 situation will get over with sooner, that we can get back to some normalcy, which we're all looking for. In the meantime, though, we have to, it's been really interesting for me getting ready for some of these, especially our graduate classes, because, we're going to have to simulcast a live classroom because we can't fit everybody in one classroom, right? So you can do that by having two classrooms side by side, and simulcast it that way, but that may not work. And some of them maybe can't come to campus, right? Because they're in another state or country. And how do you do that? I mean, if you think about just the microphones that are needed to make sure that if you're Zooming a live session plus teaching live, how does that work from a technology standpoint? You know, it's been amazing to me going through this. Just think if we didn't have the internet now, or we didn't have the capabilities of Zoom, how would we be doing all this, right? So technology is key here, and it's been really helping. And without it, we couldn't do the things we do. So let me expand now a little bit. You know, things are already moving in the higher education markets, right? Last week, Ernst & Young EY announced that they were going to do an MBA program with the University of Hull, and they were going to pay for all of their employees, EY employees, to get an MBA for free by partnering with this university. And it's going to be a completely online MBA. And we're going to see more of that. You know, if you think about the thing that universities can actually give someone, you know, what's the realm here of the gold? It's a degree. I mean, universities are the only places that can offer degrees, but the speed of change in universities isn't what the profession wants. So EY is one example. Deloitte has their own university in the accounting realm, but there's going to be other people that start playing in this ball game too. So if you think about how are organizations going to manage their talent down the road from an educational standpoint, right? So one of the things that we are doing, we have a pretty big non-degree programming in the Haslam College of Business, and we've been working with some big clients of ours to try to work with them to actually do their talent management for them and with them. So for example, you know, when you think about talent management, you have lower levels of people. Well, we can do online modules that all these people can take and learn at their own pace, right? We have the capability now. And if you move up to the next level, you know, say there's 1,000 people at the lower level and you got 100 people at the next level, then you can start doing some not you know, online programming, but have some face-to-face time, have some projects that are intertwined at a higher level. And then at the next level is like your executive MBA level training. So if you think about the dynamic here from my perspective, and Peter may talk about this too, because Germany is already doing a lot of this, I think, it's working a lot closer with industry and companies to work with their talent management. And we're going to just see more of that going forward. So Dr. Banerjee wanted me to talk about my ideas of where this future is going and where the future could be going for all of you out there too. Well, there's some things that are going to go away, and there's going to be some things that I think are enhanced. You know, I've always been one of these people that I was the first one in the office and I was always the last one to leave. Well, that's over now. I have completely gotten over that. I haven't been in the office for like 3 months, and you can still be as productive as you want to be, right? Matter of fact, you're probably having more meetings now than you did before when you were you know, in your office. So the thing that's really, I think, going to take a hit right off the top is commercial real estate. You know, I'm on the AICPA board right now, and there's been talk amongst a lot of the leaders in the industry about actually renegotiating their leases already. And whether that means people will leave cities or not, I don't know. But the idea that you have to be, you know, in an office at a specific point in time just isn't there anymore. So how I think the thing for all of us to think about is when that commercial real estate starts opening up, what's going to replace it? You know, what's the idea that we could come up with that could use all that empty space now? I think that's something to really think about, because the corporate commercial real estate isn't going to be there like it was before. Healthcare, you know, I teach in our physician executive MBA program, and you know, so we have 45 doctors in that class. So I've gotten really firsthand knowledge about what's been going on, and just from an industry standpoint, it was been really interesting for me to see, because many of our docs are surgeons, and for a couple months there, they could not do any surgeries in the hospitals or their surgery centers at all because of COVID-19. So, you know, to enhance their revenue model, what they had to do then is switch over and do more telemedicine, right? And before, people weren't thinking that that was a viable way of actually doing medicine, but everybody's now, it's about 80% of their business in a lot of places. That went from like 5% to 80%, right? So telemedicine is here to stay. And one of the things that COVID-19 did that I thought was really advantageous was usually the red tape to get things changed. You know, here we have things, CPT codes and stuff that get reimbursed. And usually it takes a long time to get through the legal system, but that got changed in like 2 weeks. So there are, you know, those are some of the benefits, but healthcare is changing forever, and that's not going back. It's going to be more technology-based platforms, and we're seeing that all over the place. The other thing that's really, from my purpose, is going to change forever is the convention business. You know, why do you have to have all these people fly to, in our case, Las Vegas or Orlando, you know, to get together, you know, to have a meeting? You know, the American Accounting Association meeting was going to be in Atlanta. That's going to be completely virtual. I've been talking to partners at Big Four firms. They're not going to have any more partner meetings face-to-face or their senior manager meetings. And you think about that, yeah, that's going to hurt, you know, the airplane and convention business, but it's going to springboard a bunch of new technology platforms that can handle, you know, this is great having a Zoom, but this isn't really a teaching platform, is it? It's a face-to-face, you know, let's get together platform. But if you're going to do a AAA meeting, how are you going to do that? Because you have to have, you know, people presenting, you got to have discussants, moderators, for example. So it's going to give a lot of people, I think, a lot of who can be creative to come up with these platforms that can be customized to these unique businesses down the road. And well, Dr. Banerjee, just tell me when to stop, because I'll just keep talking otherwise. So feel free to jump in and tell me to stop.
Yeah,
How
you
much
can.
time?
A couple of minutes to take.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the other things. Okay, this is maybe unique to the USA, but can you guess what has grown 7 to 8 times the amount of purchases in the last 3 months? It's been dates, because people want to get away, right? And so those industries are taking off like crazy here. I would have never have guessed that, right? The other two things, and then I'll get off, is I think there's going to be a lot of, the younger people are probably used to this better than we are, but the thing that we're missing is the networking capability of meeting face to face. And people are going to have to come up with really good ways to emulate that, because how do you get to know new people? You know, we used to go to dinner, to lunch, right? Things like that. And now we can't do that anymore. The other thing, the last thing I'll say from my perspective that is really a challenge, that for all of us out there, is if you can come up with a way to do this, you're going to make $1 million. In our environment, COVID, I run a business, so I'm the money maker for the College of Business here. That's my job. And so we have to do a lot of business development. And how do you do business development in the era of COVID-19 when you can't go to these places, right? And meet people? Anybody that can come up with a creative way to do that and market and recruit is going to be, that's going to be a welcome, software or whatever you come up with. So anyway, I'll get off now. I appreciate the time, and I hope that was helpful. Thanks, Dr. Banerjee.
Thank you, Bruce. Actually, sorry, it's I'm taking into for getting into the role of Dia a little bit. Dia, please don't mind. Actually, if I have to introduce Professor Peter Muller, my very close friend of mine. He's from Germany. He's actually a global person. He is a very profound scholar of management. He has been associated with many universities, leading universities in Europe, also in China, and he has been a global traveler. He has traveled India so many times. He was all with PwC headquarters as heading the US functions, and he has got his own consulting organization. He provides strategic consulting to large size companies in many parts of the world, including Eurozone. So Peter, now welcome you here, and people are waiting to hear you.
Thank you very much, RP, for the nice words. Yes, I would like to start with some more reflections what really happened, because this is a fundamental disruption what COVID did with us and every one of us, what we never have seen. We have some similar things we have seen with the Second World War, ending to 1945, but this was something what was really made by human beings. It was a military war, but what happens here comes not from human beings, it comes from the outside. And also the other crisis I would just like to enlighten a little bit. In the 90s, we had this internet hype driven by technological innovations, and this crashed in 2002, just because some companies only focused on technology, and other old economy companies focused on the traditional leadership and functions. And we learned, and the economy learned, and the companies learned to merge this. This was of the benefit of everyone. Some companies didn't survive, but most of the companies, they learned, and they're merging technology with normal leadership and growth strategies. But this time, it's really different. It's really connected to everywhere in the society and everywhere in the world. It's not concentrated on one region, it's all over. And this gives us some learnings out of this, that we find a way out of this, which is a positive one, where we get a positive future, and this we have to realize. I remember I have a professorship in Beijing at the Beijing Normal University, and also some friends there. And I had in contact with them already in the early January, where it was far away when it happened in Wuhan, but it was far away here from Europe. And everyone said, no, this is in China. Yeah, this happens in China. This is far away. But not even 1 month later, everyone saw the pictures in Italy. People are dying, and the health system, the hospitals were overloaded. And it was really a fight and a decision-making process between health and economy, between life, rescuing life, or keeping the wealth what we have in our developed countries. All citizens has been infected. And what happened then is that politicians took over more and more the management and the leadership. And what happened in Germany, I think this was one of the best parts what we can realize. The politicians did not just took over and decided something, what usually some managers are doing. No, they listened to a very small group of experts, virologists. We know them, but they had no really importance in the medicine field. But our politicians, they started to listen to them. And this was one of the success factors, how we moved through this pandemic quite successfully, or at least with not too much damages. We had courageous politicians who set the guardrails, who set some guiding decisions, And we realized that globalization will not disappear. First, we thought we have to narrow down again to our own country, but globalization is something what took place in the last 10, 20 years, and we benefit from this, and this will stay. But nevertheless, we also see some high dependencies on globalization when you look to the supply chain, to the concentrations. But politicians then took some very hard decisions with the lockdowns, and what happened is that more and more countries are just focusing on their own borders. And this is something what is really in danger for the future, and hopefully this will stop again. We only can fight against these pandemics together. For instance, between Germany and France, there's a very close relationship, a very close friendship, a partnership. People commuting every day from one side to the other side. They're living in France, working in Germany, and vice versa. And one of my colleagues in my teams, she's working in Germany and living 20 kilometers away in Strasbourg. She was not allowed to come to Germany. Some others, they went to Germany and purchased groceries. And the Germans were fighting against them. And this is something what we have to stop. We have to trust again and see that these pandemics and these crises can only be solved together. The effects on the companies. Yes, interruption of supply chain. Everyone could see this. We had the central lockdowns. In every country we have this because of this uncertainty how to deal with this. The fall down on the demand side, no consumptions. The consumption was mainly focused on the basic goods, what you need. The production fall down. And the politicians, they started to manage and to focus on the strategic industries. They wanted to keep the strategic autonomy, and this will stay in the future. Like Germany is very dependent in the pharmaceutical industry on India and China. Every pharmaceutical nearly comes from China. We have very small capacity and production lines here, and this will change. Nevertheless, we will operate globally. Especially on the market side and marketing products, we need the globe. But on the supply side, this will change, and companies will have go for more diversified strategies. I'll come to this a little bit later. So what happened for the German enterprises or European enterprises? Some companies, they were just thinking about how can we protect our existing old business models. Like in 2002 with the brick and mortar companies. Some brick and mortar companies, they struggled really to introduce new technologies, and they tried to continue and to survive with this. This will not continue anymore. So we were focusing on cash and cash, securing the short-term survival. But most companies, or some companies, and this will be the winners in the future, they started already to use this crisis and to use also the fall off, the work short down, to think about new business models, to introduce new technologies. And this is something what always happens. Companies and also our society, we have to learn our whole life, and we have to think about to innovate and not to stay too long to the existing processes. These consumers will go back to global aspects, I think. Also, they are buying very locally, and you can see some behavioral sentiments and some behavioral changes in the consumers. Some evidence. It's really a shift from value and essentials. The consumers became less price sensitive. They're really looking to products who give them more value and also quality. And we have a very big discussion here in Germany about our food industry. The Germans are only looking to price and not to good food like our French colleagues and friends. They pay more for good food, and this is changing here in Germany. There's what you can also see in the behavioral changes is the flight to digital and omni-channels. More and more people bought online. They purchased the food even online, which was very rare in Germany. And this will accelerate also in the futures. What was also interesting was see the shock of loyalty. Big brands now have problems. People purchasing not only because it's a brand, They're just looking at because they need it, and they also see different values in the different products. And an important thing, what also Bruce mentioned, is that the people and the consumer are looking more and more to the health and caring. What does it mean? It means that, of course, they want to see that products are clean, that there are no physical barriers, and they look into the inside of the companies. Companies who take care of their staff, who are concentrated on the employees, they become more and more important. And not only like financial investors, they're only looking to profit. Profitability is the one and only target for them. This will really change, and people and companies will come really to the point where they take care of their employees. There will be some winners. We have some natural winners, of course, all the health industry, the chemical pharmaceuticals. And in Germany, there's a small industry, the bicycle. The demands for e-bicycle increased by 80% within 2 months. This is some side effects. And then we have the big group of survivors or losers. And this really depends, like airlines, like airports, but also the car rentals. And this really depends how active the management is, how innovative the management is, how fast they take decisions. And the example is between Hertz, one of the biggest car rental companies, who went into insolvency after 2 months. And on the other side, you have Sixt, also an international global player in the car rental. They had a decline of more than 85% in their demand in April. But they really changed very fast the mental models, the business models. They were looking for offers of individual offers, how to cope with this isolation. And they started also to invest in the last weeks in new digitalizations, like robot process automations. These things will help. And they used these times where people had not that much work really to innovate their own companies. With airlines, it's a very complicated one. Some airlines will survive because they get some subsidies. They cannot survive by themselves. Politicians see this as a strategic autonomy industry. It will take 2 or 3 years in my eyes that they will come maybe to the same level of turnovers or revenue. But what I see, what I discussed with some Lufthansa colleagues, they don't expect this. They will change. They will come back on a lower level of revenue with lower airplanes, etc. And the airports, this is a very difficult area. We will see in Germany, we are a very small country. We have very high-speed rail trains, but a lot of airports will close down. Yes, and these are the main losers. What are the opportunities? What do we have to do? Politicians, they have to really to think about where they put in the guardrails, where they take regulations and give directions. And this will mainly focusing on the health of the staff, of the population, of the employees. There we will find very general regulations which will treat and which will go into every company. We will lower the dependency in the supply chain. We will build up different supply chains with higher cost of warehousing, of course, multi-sourcing strategies, and we will carefully look how is this country, is this a trusted partner or not? And the main focus is really the US. Germany has a very close relationship with the US. It's our biggest partner. Over 70 years we developed this, but due to the political changes, we will look how these countries are treated each other. We will have new travel behaviors. One of my friends is working in the alumni industries, and when you have 2 or 3 meetings a year, we will reduce this to most 1 meeting. We will have much more web meetings. We don't travel just for 2 hours meeting to New York. No, we will stay here, and we will have this via the web. Digitalization, I mentioned this already, especially in Europe. We expect, we see that more than 60% of the companies are thinking about a faster digitalization, and not only focusing on profit and cost structure. The known shareholder value concept mainly introduced by financial investors, the short-term profit maximization every quarter, this will change. We will come back to more sustainable strategies, which we'll realize maybe in 1 or 2 years, short-term financial maximization. So we're still facing risk. This is not the last crisis. What we'll have, we will have certainly some more viruses who will affect ourselves, but we have learned. And if you look to Korea, they learned already in 2004 from the corona virus there. They treated this, or they handled this in a much sharper and nicer way than we did in Europe. It was the first time. And we learned from this. And we will not have a lockdown again, a global lockdown. It will be partially for companies, for areas. And this is that's a good vision, and that's a good aspect. We're still facing in my face is one of the biggest risks what we have. And this will not be solved in 6 or 5 or 4 months, like we did this in these days, or with the coronavirus. This will be the climate change. And if this comes really to a risk and a shock, we will need some more time. And now we have the time to prepare everything to deal with this crisis. That's from my side. And now I'm open for some question. Of course, I'm interesting. RP, what are your comments on this?
Yeah, waiting for Dia.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. We do hope with you that we begin to trust in each other again so that we can withstand the onslaught of this virus. May I request Professor Dr. R.P. Banerjee to address the audience now.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the viewers, listeners, and participants and panelists here. I'll take cues from what Bruce has mentioned. A very important point he has mentioned about commercial, this properties and nice points in a very beautiful manner that Peter has mentioned about the consumer and the companies, the corporate world, and the future. I have my own points also. I'll mention those things as well. First of all, I have something to tell regarding education and services that Bruce has mentioned. Education, to my mind, what Bruce has mentioned actually is going to be a combination of physical and digital. It cannot be exclusively physical, nor can it be exclusively digital. It has to be a combination of these two. Those who have got the proximity with the system offering the learning modules, they will have the capacity, and as Peter has mentioned, it is not going to be global lockdown all over. It's going to be selective lockdown based on the concentration of the problems. So considering that as a fact, people who take the physical classes and the remaining people, or rather the most people, will take the digital classes sitting from the distant places. The issue is, as Bruce has mentioned, bandwidth is an issue. Meaning the connectivity is an issue, is very clear as an issue in India, in most part of Asia, is really an issue in the rural areas more than the urban areas. Now what we can do, we have the satellite, transmissions. If we can develop, I think there are some small, products. If we can have a small, which can be kept in the pocket, or which can be carried very easily, portable device, a small kind of device which is at affordable rate, and that can replicate the dissemination. For example, if a satellite transmission is done, a student at a remote area with that small device can return back with a question or with some kind of queries and can interact with the teacher. That is already there. I'll mention about a few companies who are actually into this kind of thing, and very soon this will be available in India as well. So that could be one of the options where, internet connectivity is not that strong or poor. So that way we have to manage on education. This is a part of digitalization that we have been talking about. And the next is, when we talk about the services, for example, medical services, Bruce has mentioned about the, telemedicine, and now it is very popular. A lot of, people from Europe, from America, they were taking medical advices and services from Indian counterparts, Indian doctors. This has been last few years, and also from India, the patients were taking advices from US and European, consultants on specific areas. So this is there, but then this has to grow fast, and these interactions and interchange should be more. As Peter has mentioned, that, in a world where connectivity is higher, you have a free movement, you have a free flow of things, should not get limited within the boundary or borders. Having said all this, I have a few points to mention. Basically, first that I'm going to mention about, some of the companies, what is happening there. For example, about food delivery, Peter's mentioned in Germany. I can mention about Tyson Foods in USA. I think Bruce can recognize. Tyson Foods, what they're doing, they have introduced a robot. And the robot is doing what? This is, deboning and cutting the, chicken at a faster rate, packaging and doing the, medication, and supplying it to the homes, through the distribution channel. And this has become such an important activity that a lot of people are involved and engaged in that. I'll mention about, NVIDIA. NVIDIA is now fighting with Intel. Probably all of you remember 10 years ago when Microsoft had a fight with Intel. There was a few days in the crossroad of that, wherein the total market value of Intel was someday was higher, someday was lower. This continued for a couple of months, and then Intel got a decisive win, and Intel moved forward. This 10 years ago. Now this is again going to have a similar scenario with NVIDIA and Intel. And the chip makers, NVIDIA is basically a chip maker, and that, the stock market value, day before yesterday, I've seen the value is $259 billion. Wherein, Intel has got $247 billion. And I find, a lot of stocks in New York Stock Exchange and, NASDAQ, they are showing very, very strong positive. Like a lot of stocks in Indian market, in Bombay Stock Exchange, BSE, including the basic Sensex, they are showing very, very strong, positive. Why is it happening, and what are the significance of this? Is it really important? See, so far, economists have ruled the world of finances, which is actually, to my understanding, and this is my comment, is very unfortunate. Because economists are all historians. They are mostly historical people. They bank on the historical data. They are all econometric people. They collect the data from the past. Based on the past, they project the future, and they are constrained by the past. And therefore, when something happens which does not have any past concurrence, like as Peter has mentioned, as after Second World War, this is a kind of new thing, and also Bruce has given hint to that, and all of us know this kind of thing that has not happened. Peter has also mentioned that this climate change is going to bring in a kind of larger danger in future. So if that happens, if you don't have any past experience of that, how do you draw lines? The country raters like, Moody and others, they are rating the countries on what? The performance last few months, the performance last few weeks. Now, obviously, when you have no factory production, how can GDP come forward? How can you expect that GDP grows high? So what is the parameter that you need to look at? You need to look at those parameters which have got a sensitivity, a mind. GDP does not have a mind. Market has a mind. Market has a mind, this is, this market can be considered as having an invisible mind. It's not only the invisible hand, it's but our invisible mind, because it corrects, it's, settles things which are related to each other, and then it takes forward. Now, if you have to look at the position of the market, you have to see how stock markets are behaving in the world. Just look at the New York Stock Exchange, Nasdaq, Frankfurt, Osaka, Bombay, and also even in Shanghai. And you'll find the stocks are showing certain category of stocks. Peter has mentioned about certain category of industry, and I find it's exactly fitting in, and some more, of course. They are showing very steep rise. Those who are making chips, they're showing very steep rise. Those who are making medicine, they're showing very steep rise. Those are showing, those who are into distribution, steep rise. Those who are into, as bicycle, Peter has mentioned, in India also that has become a phenomenon, and they're rising. And two-wheelers as an industry rising. For small vehicles, so with fuel efficiency, they're rising. And certain categories of, personal products, large series of personal product makers, they're having rising. And the, local distributors, they're having rising. Now, at the macro level, what should be there? I have a theory to mention to, some of the leaders of finances now in the world. I have a theory to mention to them. I'm mentioning just in a couple of minutes' time. So far, as I mentioned, you have run the economies with economic ideas. You need to forget that. You need to forget that. You need to follow the financial ideas. Now, the world should be given in the hand of the financials. There is a difference between, as I've said, economists, they have run the world on the basis of historicity. Financials can run the world on the basis of predictivity. You need to develop a predictivity for the world. The world has to survive on the future. The world should not survive on the past. Even though we have to draw from the past, we need to live on the future. How do I have a, DF squared theory, D2F2. I'm mentioning in brief. First D is digitalization. Second D is de-urbanization. The third is F. F is fragmentation. And last F is, focused welfare. So 2 Ds and 2 Fs. Digitalization is an essential thing nowadays. As I mentioned, this Tyson Food is involving, a robot. And for everything you need to have now, I'll tell you, there has been race between this Apple and Verizon 5G is servicing, and the PC shipments have increased. This Intel and Apple, they are now competing in the market. Apple is coming up with a 2021 model. Apple, there are a lot of models. There's 5G support system for Flex 5Gs, and Intel AMD for Qualcomm. And all these companies have to join the hands with a high degree of automation and digitalization. Now, high degree of automation and digitalization for what? And where will people go? That's the question. Is it going to shrink the number of job prospects, or is it going to enhance the number of job prospects? I have an estimation that if the market grows in this sector, it has already grown by 14%. It has already grown by 14% globally. US, it has grown by 11% sharp. Europe, it has grown by around 15.5%. India, it has grown up around 14%. Some part of the Korea, South Korea, Peter has mentioned, they have grown by close to 20%. Japan, they have grown. So, everywhere, if you put together, then digitalization as a process is going to involve much more people. Now, what kind of people are there? There are 2 types of people who would be more important here now. Very specific kind of technologies, not all technologies or all engineers. Very specific varieties of technologies. But in general, everywhere, there will be a requirement of managerial manpower. So the bottom line is the requirement of managerial manpower in every enterprise. Now I have a point like de-urbanization. Why? Because when you are operating from home, then where do you stay doesn't matter. Why do you take a costly house from Alipur or New Alipur or Noida or Bangalore proper or Mumbai proper? You can go 200 kilometers away. There's no problem. If you have to come to office once or twice a month or once a week at least, then you can commute that day and you can go back to your residence and you can stay well there with a less cost, lesser amount of money invested in that, and you can have a better life. So that's going to happen. That's going to happen. I remember when Infosys Narayan Murthy had work from your own station, gave the permission. That was the kind of such a foresighted thing he had. I appreciate, I salute to Narayan Murthy for that. At that point of time, almost 20 years ago, he had visualized this, and now it's going to happen, and now it's happening. So what is going to happen for this digitalization is going to be a point of view and is fact of life, and it has to be there. De-urbanization is a kind of associate of that. Commercial properties will have varied prices. The prices will come down, but at the same time, redistribution of commercial properties ownership has to take place. So I've got a piece of advice to for three important persons in the world now. Nirmala Sitharaman, the Indian finance minister, I've got an advice for you. I've got an advice for Stephen Turner, the US finance secretary, the finance minister of America. I've got a piece of advice for European Union President, Dunway, Pascal Dunway. He's going to join from 13th, from Monday. He has been elected day before yesterday, and he's going to join from Monday as the president of European Union, because the European Union has got a consortium of finance ministers from 19 countries, and they run on a basic principle. Now, the point is, you look at the fact that, when there was a policy discussion between, the policy, what kind of policy would be there. I share with you 10 years ago, there was a thing, it is from Fact File. Bill Gates had invited, for this Warren Buffett and others for a, lunch party. And in that lunch party, there was a lunch party for social welfare in the world. They talked about the social welfare in the world, and they had agreed on many points. There was one point mentioned by Warren Buffett. This has been written by Warren Buffett himself. Warren Buffett, there was one point mentioned that, why don't we have a, new kind of capitalism? What is that? It's a knowledge capitalism. I'm telling all these three important persons that, I don't believe in that knowledge capitalism. We need to have a intelligent funding, intelligent financing system in the world. What is the intelligent funding and financing system? Warren Buffett had said that, what Peter has mentioned, the shareholder value. They wanted to create a shareholder value. I want to create an enterprise value. If you have to have an enterprise value, then enterprise value has to, for example, Intel is expecting 5 times of revenue. For example, NVIDIA, this is expecting 8 times of cash flow and revenue. Now, how do they expect, 2021 and 2022, how can it be so much of, rise? It has to be because of changes in the technology pattern. So how do I catch hold of it as an economy, as a manager of the economy? You need to have a miniaturization. What I find is fragmentation is the essential thing you need to think about. Do not invest in a very large and mega, invest in medium and small. If you invest in medium and small, you will find that investment is spreading across. At one point of time, Gandhiji had mentioned about Gram Swaraj. That was a strong concept, but urbanization and modernism could not make it happen. But that same Gram Swaraj you cannot have now. So what you can have? Decentralization, which is not Gandhiji's model. Machiavelli was followed by most of the economists and finance managers. What is the basic principle of Machiavelli? Financial power has to rule the political power. That has happened. Financial power has ruled the world. But what is the benefit it has given ultimately? The poverty remains in the world, hunger remains in the world, inequality remains in the world. Nobody could solve. The socialists, they could not solve. The capitalists, they have not been able to solve. And all the traditional models of the Nobel laureates, so many Nobel laureates in economics, they have not been able to offer a single guideline which can solve it. I'm telling you, you have to follow a different method. Kautilya, in his Arthashastra, is much before Christian, Jesus's birth. Kautilya said that, I'm telling in English, it is not your financial power, but it is the power of character which can transform the society. We need to develop a power of character. There's a power of values. What is the intrinsic values of people who are the managers of the society, managers of finances in the world? And if that happens, if you have the power of character in place, then what will happen? The financial management will be a distributive. It will have a distributive justice. So if we want to have a distributive justice, then we need to have a mega, instead of mega, we need to have a meaty and meaning. Meaty and meaning is what? Emphasize on miniaturization. I'm telling you, Stephen Turner, you have a plan, Donald Trump has a plan of, $1 trillion of salvage for this corona. This $1 trillion, don't invest in the corporate. You invest in the medium size and you invest in the, new entrepreneurs. What will happen? Then this fund is likely surely going to involve into the creativity, develop the R&D faculty, develop the innovative power, develop the creative power of the economy. And we have invested, we have made, policy for CSR funding. We can do what? I'm giving a practical suggestion to Nirmala Sitharaman. The practical suggestion is you have given, allowed the fund for the CSR, corporate fund. Now you make a 1:1, fund management. The 1:1, one part would be the government's fund and one part would be the corporate fund. Take a part from the CSR fund even to begin with, and later on you leave it to them to decide on. And if this fund management, if this fund grows, and this fund shall grow into a lot of IPRs, this fund shall grow into a lot of, other revenues, the, intangibles. That intangible value is going to add value to your corporate value. So that from there, country also is likely to earn for the development purpose. So that is one. The other one is, focus to welfare. Now I have mentioned digitalization, de-urbanization, fragmentation, and focus to welfare. Now, welfare, for example, in some European countries, Peter, including in your place, in Germany, in France, in entire European Union, have done a study like, for example, in Italy, in even outside European Union, like England, for the welfare, the concept of welfare is that anybody will have a, trade-off between doing something and sitting idle and taking the benefit of welfare. This is not a motivating fund. Welfare fund should be, tuned in such a fashion that becomes a motivating fund. The factor of motivation is very important. This Bruce has mentioned that the purpose of education is what? Motivation. We need to create a motivation and inspiration. How do we create an inspiration? So we need to have some impetus from the governments, and the government should gradually withdraw from the business. Government cannot do business. Kautilya had mentioned, and that was very correct. It is, it's tested, age old, that government should gradually withdraw from business. Government should look into the, the legalities of that to see and protect that the people are protected. If government involves into business and becomes a competitor, government develops a, interest which is a partial. Government should not have a partial interest. It should have a wholesome, holistic interest for the people. And if that happens, then the government becomes the government for everybody, for government for all. So in this kind of situation, when corona has infected all of us and is going to infect a large number, millions and billions of people in the world, we need to be, we need to stand up and tell that the corona has not been able to kill all of us. And will never be able to kill all of us. And this corona has to take a back seat, and we move forward, we proceed forward. We proceed forward with the agenda that is going to cover everybody. See, corona is there in poverty, in illiteracy, in ill health, and social corona is there, is already there. Everywhere you have African poverty, you have got Asian poverty, you have got even poverty in some part of Europe. Some part of America also you have got poverty. So poverty you need to remove. How do? This economists have failed to solve. You need to give now chance for the financials, for the finance people. Now it should be handed over to the people of finance who can manage cash flows, who knows how revenues are earned, who know how revenues are created. You need to focus on revenues. You need to focus on cash flows. You don't have to see the balance sheet after everything is done. No, you need to see ongoing what is going to happen today and the next day. Your focus should be on the next day, not the yesterday. So far, it has been the yesterdays. It should be the forward days, the next day. So, for the corporate, I have got a piece of advice. Now, Harvard Business Review carried a, article saying that A by B is become redundant. A by B is what? A by B, we know how it's done. A by B is your position now. And after you have applied this strategy, the B comes, which is position next. Now, what is your objective? The A by B should be in favor of B, meaning B should be more than A. That means the fraction of A by B should be a fraction. A by B should be a fraction. A is your position now, calculated in financial terms. B is your position next, calculated in financial terms. After you have got your consumer policy, your brand policy, your strategies in your manufacturing, your strategies in distribution, your strategies in finances, your strategies in manpower, your overall strategies for the global business or the local business. This is your A. And your B, you calculate everything in terms of, the B, all those things in financial terms as B. So B should be higher, bigger, larger, stronger than A. And otherwise, you don't survive. If the enterprises survive, the economy survives. If the enterprises should be allowed to survive. It's quite natural. As Peter has mentioned, there will be a lot of changes in the corporate world now. A lot of people will take a back seat and a lot of other people will come forward. It is true. Many people will come forward. And therefore, see what happens is this is what we need to do. And we need to have this corporate world to redesignate itself, to review your position, and then have the corporate world should have new strategies to cope up with the things. And as I've already mentioned, that this D2 and F2 is going to help. And I've already mentioned, and as it has been mentioned by Bruce and Peter, who are together also from various areas, I think the future is going to be brighter than the past, and that we can make the future brighter if we join together and if we have the strength of mind at the individual and collective level. With these few words, I'm sorry, Dia, I have probably taken a few minutes more than allotted. Sorry, and thank you very much. Namaskar to everybody.
Thank you so much, sir. Your optimism is ever inspiring. Thank you. We have received quite a few questions from our students and the audience, but due to paucity of time, perhaps we will not be able to address all of those. I request Professor Dr. Joyntu Saha to select a few relevant ones for our speakers.
Yeah, good evening to all of you. Sir, there is, I think, Professor Muller and Professor Dr. Bruce K. Ben has spoken about a lot of things about different sectors. Now, there is one question that have come from one of our students called Shubhashish, and he has raised a question that which sectors are likely to witness a spurt of growth in post-COVID-19 pandemic. So, if you could talk about the possible sectors that would see as part of growth in post-corona period. So I'll first ask Muller sir, and then I'll come to the Ben sir.
Is the question addressing what is the prospective industries, or is it which suffers most?
No, sir, it's a prospective industries.
Okay, yeah, certainly technology. I mean, what you can see, the companies who came through these COVID crises very well and didn't suffer at all are all these technology companies, whether they're offering cloud services or infrastructure services or software services like Zoom, what we're using here. I mean, this is one of the winners, and there are some other companies besides Zoom as well. So technology is certainly one sector where they have really a promisable future. Companies going for digitalization, as everyone and also Dr. Banerjee explained. This is one of the main areas. It will be also the food industry. They have to go. Food is a basic industry. They will change a little bit. They will go for healthy and hygienic packaging. Customers will look for these things. So they have to change the presentation of foods. There's various industries. Also, I think small companies will have a good, successful future if they're concentrating on new needs of the customers and consumers, if they develop products. And what we have learned from the intelligent politicians and courageous politicians, they have to listen to experts or to customers and then to adapt this.
Thank you. I think if Professor Dr. Bruce K. Ben.
Yeah, I agree with Peter with everything he said. You know, technology, not just Zoom, but if you think about Hollywood and all the, I mean, whether it's Hulu or Amazon Prime, I mean, anything that can be digitized and used individually and customized is going to be a great business to be in. And that includes it. That could be education down the road, right? That can be, Peter mentioned small business. You know, we have about 35 million, 40 million small businesses in the United States. And I can see where if they do a new business models in the right way, they could even become a more dominant factor in whether it's food delivery or you know, restaurants. You know, here too in the States, one of the biggest industries that's been affected is the liquor, wine. You know, I mean, or even the personal side of that is doing things your own now by, you know, growing your own gardens. I mean, you know, little industries like that has been a thing. Things the market will tell you what individual people want, right?
Right.
They want things that they had before, but it's in a new environment. And you know, whether it's Amazon.Prime or getting flowers for your garden, that has to be an experience that technology and the small businesses can help in a local area to help people do that. So again, there will be a lot of positive things coming out of this.
Thank you. Sir, if I ask our Professor Dr. R.P. Banerjee, sir, there is a question, and they are specifically asking about the prospect of FMCG sector post-corona. And though he's putting a doubt on the prospect of the FMCG sector, but I really wanted to ask you, do you really think FMCG sector has ever suffered due to corona, or it has grown proportionately or more after this?
Yeah, first of all, I thank the person for raising this question. It's a very important issue, particularly in the mind of young people. FMCG, as the industry, is termed as fast-moving consumer goods. You know, the fast-moving consumer goods are actually moving faster now. Initially, you know, in the month of March and April, the FMCG had a strong, resistance, and they could not move forward. They had their coffers shut down. And now they are growing in a very fast rate, but most of them or many of them are innovating now. And they're innovating with the new spirit. Now the spirit is in the FMCG, for every product, you need to have a hygiene concept involved. And hygiene concept getting involved is making the product run faster. And the product is getting consumed faster, and the time is coming when, with a localized distribution system, as I've already mentioned, small enterprises are likely to mushroom. And these small enterprises will not only do some technology, they will do everything, including FMCG and the products which are called FMCD even. So FMCG, I don't see any prospect of any negative prospect of FMCG future. And in fact, it is started growing. And if you look at the share prices of the companies which are having FMCG products, they are showing positive. Bombay Stock Exchange has, in the early part of Corona, it had touched down to 22,000 Sensex. Now the Sensex is 36,000. Is not only that 30 share composite has got 5 shares which are actually drawn from direct FMCG or FMCG included, brands. So what happens is, that composite shows a steep rise means the market is sensing, stronger next day, next period. So that's my point.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I think, Dia, can we take some more questions or should we go for the poll, depending on your... Or I just have a question for Professor Bruce K. Ben. I can't hold myself to ask this question, sir. The question is to you is, many students are asking that a lot of Asian students are actually going for studies in USA. Now, after this COVID-19 pandemic, now how USA universities are changing their plans and how they are actually inducting their international students who are going for studies this year?
Yeah, boy, that's a really tough question because we're under our current political environment in the United States, it's not being very friendly to international students, and I'm really sorry about that. I know that Yale, Harvard, and Stanford are suing the US government right now to release some of the current ICE regulations that came out last week. The international, from my perspective, we can't be great universities without international students. It's part of our DNA. I mean, and aside from our current political environment, I think I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, which was one of the most diverse campuses at the time, and still is. But to be a great university, you have to have a diverse student base, and that includes a huge international presence. And I think every university is going to do everything in their power to continue that. While we're online, though, it's been interesting to me. I know I looked in the chat line earlier. It's, one of the fundamental questions I have is if we stay all online, every university in the world, who's going to win out on that? And how are you going to win out on that? I mean, just think about it. If everybody has the same programs, whether it's an MBA or business analytics or undergraduate in accounting, and everything is online for the next 2 years, are you going to win out? You better have, in my view, you better not be competing on price because you're going to lose. You better be competing on quality, right? And your brand reputation, and that's going to dictate where students go ultimately. So it's going to be an interesting journal, but the first part of your question, we have to have international students. Every university in the United States knows that to be a great university, you can't do it without them.
Okay. Professor Dr. R.P. Banerjee, sir, are you going to add anything to it? You wanted to?
Yeah, just a few points. What Bruce has mentioned, internationalization in education has been a phenomenon after Second World War last century, and many universities in Europe and United States they bank on, as Bruce has mentioned, DNA. They bank on that, but now it's going to be more local than global. Global in spirit, but local in functioning. That's going to happen. So those who can offer global standard to being in the local areas will have more people joining them than, be at a global place and expecting the global persons to come. For example, United States, the visa restrictions has actually, barred the current students also from re-entry to the places, those who came back for some for a few days or for a while. And that is the same situation with Japan, with same situation with Germany, with England, with Australia, with most places. So, for example, students from India, where will they go? 1,30,000 roughly had been last year outgo from India to United States. This year, the target was by US Embassy around 1.5 lakhs, meaning 1,50,000, meaning 150,000. And I guess this is going to be less than 15,000. And so what will happen to the remaining? The remaining will have to do their studies in the local areas in their country. So it will be more homeland oriented, because now they will actually, when they were going they were not actually really comparing with what you are getting here and what you are likely to get there. Now, when they will actually examine and they will actually find that I get the same and similar quality, so why do I go? But some will go because, as Bruce has mentioned, the brand will pull some people. So those who are brand conscious or brand aware or brand lovers, they will rush to the brands. Those who are quality lovers, quality conscious, they will stay back. So that way you will have a large number of people staying back. Some will always rush, and then the pricing of education will be higher. With digitalization, the international pricing of education has to go up. Well, whereas they have to compete with global pricing level. Now, because of this lesser supply of numbers, they will have to raise their revenue or their price levels. So that way, it will reach a trade-off maybe a couple of years from now, and then I think normal flow will start. I'm talking about the period in between. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. And I think with this, we are actually completely running out of time.
Thank you, sir. That brings us to the end of the most stimulating session of discussion. On behalf of EIILM Kolkata, I sincerely thank all our speakers for taking time out of their extremely busy schedule for this webinar and sharing their invaluable opinions with us. I do hope that our audience, especially our students, have learned the importance of reskilling and rescaling in the post-COVID world. As our speakers have assured us that the brave new world will indeed be favorable for the brave. Do send us your comments, feedback, and suggestions at info@eiilm.co.in. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you so much.